So there's one man that the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, and many Chinese elites fear more than any person in the world. And no, this person is not Donald Trump, it's not Elon Musk, and it's certainly not Joe Biden. But ironically, the man the Chinese Communist Party fears the most is Chinese. And his primary mission is simple: to expose hidden secrets and turn the people of China and really the world against the CCP. In fact, he's made claims that the CCP has gone as far as successfully infiltrating and even pulling the strings on our very own US Department of Justice, and that there are plans currently being executed by the CCP to take out the legs of our military as well. Which, based on what we talk about later in this video, he may not be that far off. And this important figure looking to bring all of the CCP's dirty tactics to light is a man named Guo Wengui, better known as Miles Guo. Now, this guy wears a lot of hats, but his claim to fame was being a real estate billionaire primarily through his development projects. And on top of that, he's an online influencer, a political activist, and even a rapper. Yup. A rapper who started making diss tracks and songs speaking out against the Chinese Communist Party. And arguably his biggest hit, which garnered millions of views and listens, is a song titled "Take Down the CCP." So obviously it's no secret that Miles Guo and the CCP don't necessarily have the greatest relationship. As a matter of fact, the CCP wanted him gone so much so that the Chinese government officials started arresting his close friends and business partners, along with torturing and fining Guo's family members as well. They even produced fake news videos with people claiming that Miles was a rapist and a sexual predator. But of course, upon further investigation, you discover that the people in those videos were paid actors hired by the CCP to make these accusations. Now, despite defecting to the United States, being a billionaire, and having millions of followers online that look to him for the truth about the Chinese Communist Party and their plans to infiltrate the United States, on March 15th of this year, Miles Guo was arrested in New York City by federal authorities for allegedly conducting a $1 billion fraud. And what's interesting to me is that Miles was arrested without bail, which is completely out of the ordinary considering the state of New York offers bail to even criminals charged with murder, and the protocol for white-collar crimes, which is the category Miles' case falls under, is for the defendant to receive bail with an ankle monitor placed on them at all times. But instead, Miles Guo did not receive bail whatsoever, and the SEC, FBI, and the DOJ all went after Miles, and over $630 million worth of assets was seized by the US government. Okay, so what happened? Did he actually commit fraud? Did innocent investors lose millions of dollars? And the answer to both of these questions: no. Because here's how fraud typically works. At first, you have operations that are mainly built based on deception. Usually everything looks amazing up front, but the more research you do, you realize this model isn't sustainable. But of course, for that exact reason, the business falls apart and fails, which eventually leads to a big exposure of what's really happening. Then investors get angry, media gets involved, leading to a grand finale of arrests being made and charges getting rolled out. In fact, if you look at some of the largest examples of fraud, such as FTX with Sam Bankman-Fried and Bernie Madoff, you quickly learn that they all follow this exact model. But that's not what happened with Miles Guo. Actually, not even close. In fact, the only reason why the business quote-unquote failed was because the SEC and the FBI came and shut it down by seizing funds right away after they were being raised. And with regards to the investors, out of the 5,500 investors that worked with Miles Guo, none of them came out and classified themselves as victims. In fact, the New York Southern District Attorney Damian Williams was unsuccessful in finding even one person investing with Miles to speak out against him. But what we find is actually the opposite, because at a rally to support freeing Miles Guo on March 18th, investors spoke out that they don't consider themselves victims of Guo, with one investor going as far as to say, "We are not victims of Miles Guo or GTV. We are the victims of the SEC, of the DOJ, and the federal government agency of the United States who are infiltrated by the CCP." Okay, now, I don't know about you, but when we see fraud and scam operations of this magnitude, especially with this amount of money involved, we typically see thousands of angry investors that are demanding justice and reparations. What you don't see are thousands of the quote-unquote victims getting together at a rally to support the alleged fraudster. And to top it all off, the hundreds of millions of dollars that the SEC seized from Miles Guo, which was originally the investors' money, it's been 2 years and they still haven't returned the money to the original investors. But what's even crazier is that even after all of this, in a massive event of coincidence, while Miles was in jail, his penthouse in New York City, which contained a bulk of his evidence, caught fire and burned. And what did they claim was the cause of this fire? A simple light fixture.
You sure about that?
Which is suspecting, considering that this is a nearly $100 million luxury penthouse where maintenance is inspected and done pretty regularly. But the most ironic part, at least for me, as reported by NBC News New York, has to be that the fire started right as FBI agents were wrapping up their search of his penthouse. Okay, so at this point, we just have to ask, why is the CCP so obsessed with silencing this man? And why does the Chinese government want him back to China so bad, to the point where when President Trump had a meeting with Xi Jinping, the very first thing that Xi asked was for Trump to deport Miles Guo back to China? What were the claims that he made? And the most important question that we have to ask ourselves is, was he right? Well, here's a quick rundown on some of his biggest claims. For starters, on October 5th, 2017, Guo made a public statement backing it up with a confidential document belonging to the Chinese government stating that the CCP were secretly formulating a plan to start dispatching Chinese police officers to the United States. And uncoincidentally, 6 years later, on April 17th of this year, our very own Department of Justice arrested 2 Chinese New York City residents for operating an illegal overseas Chinese police station affiliated with the Chinese government, which we, by the way, still haven't done anything about to this day. Another claim he made, which seems to be appearing more and more true as time goes on, was him back in October of 2021, stating that the Chinese government plans strategically to have all US military personnel be vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, regardless how you feel about the vaccines, we now know for sure that the origins of the virus was not from a bat in the markets of Wuhan, but from a lab. And even evidence and statements from the US Department of State showing that the Chinese government restricted anyone from entering Wuhan to investigate, while also spending countless resources to push false narratives about its origins. I mean, at this point, I think we all know what's happening here. Okay, so that said, there are a lot of claims being made about Miles Guo. Some are saying that he's with the Communist Party. Some say the CCP has a lot to do with him acquiring the wealth he did in the first place, and now he's just turning on them. And many are saying that he is indeed just a corrupt businessman who's now just going against the CCP as a scapegoat argument. That said, I'm curious to hear where you stand on this, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. And also a big thank you to the YouTube channel Wolves in Finance for providing a lot of the information. And that being said, guys, thanks for watching.